These days, $100,000 per year salary in the United States and even some other first world countries like Canada doesn't go that far. But that's not really what I'm here to talk about. I'll touch a little on why $100,000 per year doesn't make you a baller today like it would have a few years ago, and then I'll talk a little bit about my journey going from minimum wage to hitting that big six-figure milestone, and why now a few years on I feel like it's still not enough. So what do most people mean when they say $100,000 isn't that much these days? Well, it's kind of similar to how being a millionaire isn't the same as it once was. When I was a kid, if you were a millionaire, I had this mental picture that you were like Scrooge McDuck swimming in pools of gold coins every day. Obviously, I thought that because I was just a kid, but there is a hint of truth to it. My parents were born in 1962, and $1 million then is equivalent to $10.4 million now, which is just shy of putting a household in the top 1% in America these days. If we go back to when I was a kid, let's call it the year 2000. $100,000 salary then is equivalent to $186,681 now. So even though that six-figure salary is still a great achievement and feels satisfying once we get there, we can't ignore the fact that you're not balling out at $100K, unless you're single and either don't save and invest or don't pay any taxes. You don't have to just take my word for it. Bank of America recently released an analysis that states that about a fifth of US households that earn more than $150,000 a year are living paycheck to paycheck. Normally, I would have argued that if you can't manage that kind of income, then you're just bad with money or spend way too much. And I'd still argue you spend too much, but now that I'm a bit older and have friends who are starting to have kids, I could see how you could blow through that money pretty easily with childcare and all the other expenses that come with having a family, especially if your family is in a high cost of living area, like New York or LA or San Francisco. I'm only 30 years old, but I've been working for 16 years now. And in that time, I've worked minimum wage jobs and I've worked jobs where I made $150K. I've worked fast food and retail, but I've also worked white collar in cubicles you'd think they filmed the movie Office Space from. I've personally experienced firsthand a good portion of the income spectrum and have experienced different types of jobs in different industries. So I've not only seen how the numbers change, but I've experienced how the numbers made me feel and how the jobs themselves feel one to the next. I started working at 14 at McDonald's. 14 was the youngest I was legally allowed to work in New York. My parents didn't have a business where I could work under the table for them, and I didn't get an allowance. Granted, I didn't do many chores as a kid. So my motivation for working so early really was because I wanted money and didn't have any other way of getting it. And the reason I wanted money as a kid was the same reason I wanted my driver's license as soon as possible. I wanted independence. I wanted freedom. I couldn't be free if I needed my parents to drive me around everywhere and needed them to pay for all my stuff. The job paid $7.15 per hour, minimum wage in New York at the time. I liked the people I worked with even though they were all degenerates, and put decent effort into the job, got promotions and small raises, but after 4 years, the hot, greasy environment, the shitty customers, and the coworkers who would always call out and be on their phones and whatnot made me look for something else. Next job was working at a boutique furniture store where I started as a stock guy. Then they moved me out front to work the sales floor and I really didn't like it. I like the monotonous, quiet process of unboxing shit from the truck. Those are my only two minimum wage jobs, fast food and retail. During college over the summers, starting after my sophomore year, I got engineering internships where the pay was much better. I don't remember the exact details, but I want to say the pay was in the range of like 20 to 25 an hour, which by today's standards is hilariously low, given that fast food workers in California are making $20 an hour, and in New York where I grew up, the minimum wage is now $16.50. But anyway, these summer jobs paid way better and were much more comfortable jobs. I was in offices doing pretty basic engineering shit for more money. Life was good. I spent every dollar I made every summer in the following year of school. New Xbox, new TV, drinks, food, spring break trip, all that shit. I remember when I graduated college, I was legit broke because I'd blown all the previous summer internship money throughout the year. I graduated college in 2018 and got my first full-time engineering job making $70K in upstate New York. I wasn't living like a king, but I was pretty damn comfortable. I was able to save and invest a little, and my job got pretty easy after a while. Cut to my girlfriend at the time graduating school, and we moved out to Phoenix together where I got a new job making a hair over 100K. Just before my 25th birthday. I was on cloud 9, seeing the offer come in with one more digit than I was used to seeing. Since then, I've changed jobs 2 more times and have made in the range of 135 to 150K for the last few years. And what I can tell you through my 16-year journey is that after a certain point, the paycheck just became a number on a screen. I was way more comfortable in my 6-figure engineering job than I was making minimum wage at McDonald's, of course. There's no question about that. But since I've started working full-time, I've doubled my income and gained a lot of experience in a couple years, and I still feel the same way about work as I always have. Now, I'm not trying to come off like an ungrateful douche saying that making 100 grand a year is anything to sneeze at. What I mean when I say that six figures isn't enough, it's not that life is so expensive that I can't pay for stuff. But it's not like having a slightly bigger paycheck really makes the day go by any quicker, makes Jira boards any more interesting, or makes commuting any less suicide thought inducing. My work still doesn't have meaning to me, and I envy people like my wife who do find meaning in their work. I always used to scoff at that study that said how more than like 80K per year didn't make people any happier. I figured that had to be bullshit. Well, I'm way happier when I make more money. Like, yeah, I can go out to eat more often without thinking about it, and I can consume product a little bit more frequently, but I'm starting to think that attitude is just kind of cope. Really, the only big increase in satisfaction I guess I've noticed since earning more is that I can invest more money, which means I can hopefully get out of the rat race sooner. And I suppose maybe with even more money, my opinions on this would change, but I don't know. I obviously would not want to go back to working minimum wage. But I don't know, maybe it's just rose-tinted glasses, but I felt like going into McDonald's was more exciting than going into an office today. Despite doing work that has more impact, and despite making more money, it still feels like there's something missing. And there's a part of my brain I can't shut off that still feels like shit going to work for someone else every day, regardless of what I'm doing. So yeah, I've been bringing home a six-figure income for a few years now, and after that initial high wore off after signing that first job offer, it's not like my life has really gotten so drastically better that it feels like I'm living on a different reality than, say, my friends and family who make a little bit less. Lifestyle inflation takes away a good chunk of the additional earnings, and ultimately, I still deal with the same bullshit day to day as when I was making 70K out of college, and honestly, even some of the same bullshit as when I was making minimum wage working at McDonald's. I still resent having to go to work every day and still question what I'm doing with my life, and I think if I could double my salary again with the snap of my fingers, this feeling still would not go away. I recently got the motivation for starting this channel from a fairly small channel called WhyLearn. And this guy was talking about how he quit his corporate software engineering job a little while back to pursue freelancing, YouTube, and some small other side hustles where he was making a lot less, but was in control of his time and was way happier. I'll link his channel in the description. Even though he still isn't making a ton of money, the way he described his days with the responsibility to put in tons of work, but with the freedom to plan his days as he sees fit, and him working for himself really resonated with me. Picturing myself in his shoes gives me that same feeling of freedom I had as a teenager when I got my first job and got my license and could finally leave the house and do what I wanted on the weekends. As an adult, being able to live that way, where I'm in control of my time every day, sounds like a dream, and I'm hopeful that I'll get there one day soon. If you're still with me, thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time.